Next, let's review script 5b. I'll go ahead and type in nano. Now, there's actually nothing we have to define in script 5b. It pulls the domain name we saved in script 5a, and then it creates a new Kubernetes namespace called Nextcloud and installs Nextcloud. It creates and assigns a self-signed certificate and creates an ingress rule using traefik with YAML. And once the Nextcloud instance is deployed, the script modifies the config file to add the domain name we created to be a trusted domain. Otherwise, if we browse to it without modifying the config file, we'll get a trusted domain error. And that's all that's in this script. Let's go ahead and run it. Now, keep in mind, we'll have a working Nextcloud instance, but its storage will not be persistent. It also uses an SQLite database, which is not recommended for production as that has limitations in concurrency. And because we won't have persistent storage, that means if any of our nodes or pods get restarted, well, nothing uploaded to our Nextcloud instance will actually be there. But this script is more just a test application to prove that things are working. And that's where script 6 will come in, is to create a production-ready Nextcloud instance. Okay, so it looks like it did deploy a Nextcloud pod and then modify its config file. So we can see our config file does have our nextcloud.yourexample domain added, and it is using an SQLite database for now, but that's okay. And it is using HTTPS. So now we can browse to it. All right, so the first time we sign in, the credentials that we'll use, which are listed here, are admin and change me for the password. And the first time we sign in, it sometimes comes up with this error. We just have to sign in a second time. And now we are greeted with the Nextcloud splash page. Pretty cool. And then we can go to our files here and see the initial set of files that are added with a initial deployment. So now we have a working Nextcloud deployment. But again, this is a test instance. We can click our admin profile up top and then click administration settings. And then if we click system down here, we can see that it is using the SQLite type database. We'll go ahead and test uploading a file. So if I click new and upload a file, and I'll go ahead and upload my script notes for this video series. And we uploaded a Word document, so it's there. But let's check on our Kubernetes infrastructure. So first, if we were to go to Rancher, we can go to workloads. And in our workloads, we can see Nextcloud is deployed. And I can actually click on it and see that it did deploy to our test K3s 04 node. And I can even go to Longhorn and see that our Longhorn storage did bump up a little bit since we have our pod running on it. If I went back to our shell here, I can type in kubectl get pods using the namespace Nextcloud. And we see that we do have a pod deployed. But if I was to delete this pod, a new one would appear. So we can type in kubectl delete pods and copy the name, and then define the namespace Nextcloud. Okay, our pod is now deleted, but now I can hit up arrow a couple times and say kubectl get pods and the Nextcloud namespace. And we can see that we have a new pod that is getting deployed. Now it's not yet running, so we'll hit up arrow a few more times until we can see that it is running and ready. And now it is in the ready state. And now if I was to refresh, well, we see we are greeted with the untrusted domain error. So that's because this is now a new pod that does not have our custom config file. But what we can do is go to GitHub and pick the 5 and 6 folder, and then pick script 5b. And if we scroll all the way down, we can see there's a section here that overwrites the config file. Now I could also get this from just editing script 5b in our Proxmox shell, but it was just a little easier to get it from GitHub. I can copy that and paste that here. And what this will do is get our current Nextcloud pod name, which is this, into a variable called pod name. And then if we type in ls, and we can see that we had our config file of our test Nextcloud deployment already saved as a file. So we can just simply copy that back with this command here. And now if I was to go back to this page, I can hit refresh. And in a moment, now we can browse to it again. Admin and change me. Now we have this error because this is technically the first time sign in again. And we're greeted with the Nextcloud splash page again. But our file is not there. And that is because we had an ephemeral pod. There's no persistent storage. And that's just how containerized deployments work, is their storage is ephemeral. But that is where script 6 comes into play, is we'll have persistent storage and a production-ready deployment.